How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the second of 3 interview previews leading up to my new course, Discover Game Design, coming out on April 11th, 2017. Today, we hear from Sandy Gordon, the co-founder and pixel artist for Spaceboy Games, where he's currently working on Pharah. Check the description below to follow him on Twitter. You can see his GIFs and tutorials on pixel art and see for yourself how cool he really is. I hope you enjoy the interview. I tried recording this 4 other times before we joined this on different laptops, and every single laptop with the camera just completely failed.
Oh no.
Like, no. So then I ran to this computer that I know will work, but it does not have any kind of camera. So I got to make that investment. That's my next investment here. But
Gotta do it.
we were talking about the school system, and I think that it's dead on. Sometimes teachers kind of don't have the know-how to continue to like stay practical.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
hard to stay relevant in an industry that's moving as quickly as, especially the gaming industry, but media in general. It's really hard for the teachers to stay relevant. And like I was saying, a lot of the students that come into the programs, they're already so self-driven and passionate. You know, they want to move, and the teachers aren't moving as quickly as the students. So a lot of them, like even, myself included, and I'm sure that you were probably the same, we would go into the program and already, if we're taking a preliminary Photoshop class, we'd already know how to do everything the teacher is telling us, and you really end up feeling like you're wasting your time.
oh, yeah.
And so
I can imagine how you guys feel when it's like the teacher's teaching you basic Photoshop and you're doing actual Photoshop work.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? I went to an interview a long time ago at Warner Brothers, and I was actually looking at their animation department, Cartoon Network, and I was like, wow, this is great. Like, Cartoon Network is my dream.
It's the top of the top.
It's the top of the top. And I went to Warner Brothers, and it was a complete day where I went to Cartoon Network. It was great. I loved it. And then I went to their gaming department, and I met with a guy who was like their hiring guy, I guess, or something like that. And he gave me this whole spiel about how a game is not a game unless it makes $100 million. And I was just sitting there like, what? Did you just say that? And then I said, well, and this was actually before No Man's Sky came out. And I said, well, have you heard of this game called No Man's Sky? And I'm like, I think that's the game you're looking for. And I barely heard of any games that have made that much money.
No, maybe some Rockstar games here and there, but
Minecraft.
No, I was like Minecraft. Yeah, sure.
Those are the games that came to mind, and I was just like,
but what? those things become part of pop culture. Those games are not your average, even successful game. So even games like Meat Boy or Fez, indie darlings certainly have not made even close to that amount of money. So
oh my god, no, that's a ludicrous amount of money for I think for any industry. That's a ludicrous amount of money.
Yeah, but even the movie industry, that's a lot of Hollywood blockbusters do make that, but in general, that's really pushing it. So that's crazy.
So that was a very interesting experience, and it just kind of brought everything full circle because I didn't go to school, and this was kind of like what would have been my second year in school, and I'm already at Cartoon Network. Like, well, that was the right decision.
Did you end up applying for a job there, or was it just a studio tour of some kind?
I was applying. Yeah, it was more than a studio tour, but it was less than a job interview, and I was getting like the lay of the land, and I was seeing if, obviously interning there or being there, it's in Burbank, California, and being there is inspiring. And I got to meet JG Quintel, the creator of Regular Show, which was awesome. But just in general, it's like, do I really want it? Is this where I want to be? And I guess the answer was no, because I never ended up applying, and I'm also on the other side of the country. So I would like to get up and move there, but it's a big deal. And if it's not going to, I didn't have like a direction with it. But it just kind of goes back to the whole school conversation where it's like, well, what are we learning now? And what can I learn on YouTube that is actually 10 times more valuable than I'm learning in school?
Right.
And there's a lot of content out there like that. And I hope that my tutorials have been like that for some people. That's like always the goal with my tutorials is, I'm only going to make tutorials that I find useful and that I find fun, and where there was something missing in other tutorials,
Yeah, I can imagine that for someone, I mean, I'm making a few tutorials too, so I guess I have thought about this a little bit, but I can imagine going into it, you've got to really put yourself in the position of someone who knows nothing again and try and come up with the questions that they might ask so you can answer them. Because otherwise you're just kind of scrambling for, what do I talk about today? I can talk about, making a dash effect or making some other kind of simple mechanic, but you're skipping over a lot of the fundamentals that are required for really learning a program, not just copying the way you do something specific.
Right.
And that, because that doesn't really teach you. It just it gives you the tools, I guess, to make that one mechanic. But this is an issue that I'm running into a lot with trying to learn construct right now, and using some of your tutorials, but certainly no fault of your tutorials or anyone else's. But my issue is I don't really know where to start to build that foundation. So, I'll think, okay, I want to make a game that has a dash effect, and I'll look for tutorials on how to do a dash, but I'm kind of skipping over the fact that even if I can get this dash to work, I don't know how, what if I want the dash to have a trail effect or to be twice as fast? I don't really know what do I need to fix to make those things happen on my own?
Right.
Is the thing. So.
Okay, that gets me thinking. I always love hearing, where people are coming from, where their problems are starting, and how we can put them to rest easily. And structuring your game file or anything like that when you're starting off is actually, I agree completely, because when I look at Unity or Unreal, you're like, where do I begin?
Yeah. Those tools are powerful. They can do a lot, but daunting at first.
Definitely daunting. It's kind of like a music making software, also extraordinarily daunting. If you ever just look at it, you're like, what? Too many buttons. But
yeah.
But you're doing pixel art tutorials?
Yeah, well, mostly animation, to be honest.
Mostly animation.
The principles that I'm going over are generally applicable to any style of animation. So whether it's or any medium rather, whether it's pixel art or hand pencil on paper, it would work. But yeah, I've been doing them in pixels.
And you're just going like through the principles of animation and stuff like that?
More or less. Not so much, squash and stretch and things like that, but how to do a run cycle, walk cycle.
Yeah, the more actionable things.
Yeah, the things that I've been asked how to do more often than anything else, and really are pretty fundamental to putting together a game. You need an attack animation in most cases, running and jumping, things like that. So yeah, it's been helpful for me too, actually, to make those, just because it helps me organize why I'm actually doing what I'm doing. So I feel like I've been animating a lot intuitively over the past couple of years, and I haven't really sat down to think, okay, what are the steps that I'm instinctively taking to make this look decent.
Right.
So I'm breaking it down in ways that I think would help someone that doesn't have any of that, I guess.
I saw that on your Patreon, I think.
Yeah.
I saw it in one of the gifts that you have where let me find your Patreon, where you have like the breakdown literally of the body parts.
And yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that, because it's so clear and it looks really painstaking to me. Like, wow, they're in different colors. Yeah, it's right in your goals right there. I'll have to put a link or something like that. Or I might be able to share my screen. That might work. Yeah, let's see if I can share screen too. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can. There it is.
Great. Well, that's great. I love this. This is, to me, this breaks it down actually in an easier way than this does. Like, I haven't taken one of your tutorials, but just from looking at this, it makes me want to take your tutorial, because now I see the breakdown more. And you have the benefit of being able to, kind of give out like these gifts before people even decide to become a Patreon or something like that, or a patron. And yeah,
to
me, this is cool.
Yeah, thanks, man. I wanted to do it all for free. I mean, really, I am because the gifts I always do release for free. But I did kind of think about doing this more regularly. I haven't been doing it weekly or anything. It hasn't been super consistent, but I try and do them maybe one or two a month. But ideally, if I can get people interested enough in, I guess, supporting me creating them, then I do them on a more regular basis, maybe weekly or something like that. But what I do on the Patreon is release the actual animation files. So I have the 100% resolution GIFs that I use to make the animations, which include both the outline version and the full, color detailed version, and release those. And I do that because the way that I learned was ripping GIFs from games or sprite sheets or just pixel art animations from people whose work I really admired, and opened them up in graphic scale or Photoshop or whatever I'm using to animate, and just studying frame by frame what they're doing. So actually taking the 100% resolution GIFs and blowing those up, and just observing, frame by frame what's going on. So I feel like if I can offer that to people.
Would you trace your stuff at first?
No, I wouldn't really trace. I feel like tracing is similar to what I was talking about before with issues for people learning code, where you lack the fundamentals. You can follow a tutorial and copy it exactly, but you're not really learning why they're doing what they're doing.
Right. You need to know every little bit, and that just comes with practice, right? I mean,
it does.
That's kind of one of the things that, for me, one of the things I've been writing about is, I want people who are using Construct, especially using Construct, to actually clone some games, in the sense that you do need to make a few engines to get it, to get it going, for the wheels to start turning a little bit.
I do agree. Yes.
So I don't want people to trace, and I definitely don't want anybody to steal anything, but at the same time, I love it when people are, what's the word? The word is escaping me. Where they're proactive. That's the word. They're proactive enough to say, "Wow, I really like this game. I'm going to rip some sprites from it and try it out for myself, and just make it for my own purpose."
Yeah.
I did that with Super Crate Box. I did that a few years ago with Super Crate Box in Construct, which obviously was made in Game Maker, and it was a huge eye-opening experience because it had a lot of the features that I wanted to implement in my games, like the whole weapon system, mainly the weapon system, and some of the enemy AI was exactly what I was trying to figure out. How can I do this? I guess that's the same for how can you make a run cycle, or how can you make a really good idle cycle, or anything like this. And I guess it just comes with the experience of doing that. But that's kind of where I've been coming from when I say clone. I remember I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, if you can't really draw, like I can't really draw, which is really a hindrance. It's something that I wish I had more time to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do draw, it would only be for pixel art. I love pixel art. I think it's beautiful. And your pixel art, did you draw all this this background right here?
I did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And I'm very jealous of this pixel art. I'm like looking at it and I get lost in it so much. And this is like looping over and over again.
Thanks,
but anyway, I told somebody to clone the world's hardest game. Have you played that game?
Is that actually the title of the game?
Yeah, it was an old Flash game from like 10 years ago. And the whole point is you're literally a square, and you're trying to avoid circles and triangles. And maybe you've seen a screenshot of it. I can find it real fast. It's like
I thought you were referring to Dark Souls when you said the world's hardest game.
No,
clone Dark Souls.
Just do that, yeah. Oh,
yeah. Just Construct.
Here you go. This is the world's hardest game. Maybe you've seen it or not.
Oh, nice. No, I actually haven't, but that looks.
It's a really challenging game. It's definitely living up to the world's hardest game title, but it's also very simple in its mechanics. So it's using the 8-direction behavior for us. It's using the 8-direction behavior, and then you're walking over these coins. That's a pickup, and it doesn't do anything other than count. If you hit the blue, then you die, and your whole goal is to get from green to green. And it's one of those things that I've been starting to recommend to people more because it kind of teaches you the basics of
Yeah.
some games. It's definitely simple. There's nothing terribly difficult that you really need to master, but that's kind of where I've been starting for people.
So this is actually the kind of thing that I think is perfect because this game is not okay. You're not distracted by visuals, by flashy visuals or flash animations. I think that cloning something like this would actually teach not only how to create the mechanics and the functionality, but a lot of good game design practices. Because
Definitely.
what this looks like to me is your your average Zelda like, you know, a dungeon crawler, top down sort of perspective, and it clearly seems to have a lot of puzzles. So
Yeah, there's
learning
like
how to
30.
make a game, yeah, you know, and it's obviously very hard. Learning how to make a game like this, I think, would set any student up or anyone up to make a Zelda, a Binding of Isaac type game, maybe even a platformer if you just kind of swap the eight
Yeah,
direction to platforming controls.
exactly. That's exactly what I did. I think
Yeah,
the game that I sent you that I made for my jam game
yeah, that,
was
yeah.
directly influenced by this artwork.
I was gonna say that it looked like it was, but I didn't want people to come
Directly
to it.
influenced by it, and I just turned it into
Yeah,
a gravitational platformer. But I only got it to be a gravitational platformer because I did this first,
because
and
you flipped the you
yeah,
flipped
and
the
I changed it from eight direction to a platformer, and then I was like,
right.
I racked my head over the gravity thing for so long, and I did what everybody does at the beginning, where they just like make functions and they do this and that and this and that, and then you have like a huge event sheet of code, and then the solution came down to 4 lines, and I was like, oh my god, it was like hours
Oh,
later, and then I
that's
was like,
great though.
it was great because then I had such an easy mechanic, um, and yeah, I always recommend people to do this, and it's becoming a better recommendation. And one of my students actually completed his clone and sent it to me, and I was like, "Wow, this is really cool." And
Oh, that's a,
it's definitely something that I recommend everybody should try. There's other games out there that you could try, cloning, but you have the advantage of these really flashy pixels, right? And
well, completely
um,
different ballpark of
right, but it's completely different ballpark, and that's actually my point. It's very hard to convince people these days that this is acceptable. I mean, it's
okay.
interesting because some games, make it onto the mainstream gaming channels and they don't look anything like your artwork. They could
Yeah.
be really, really simple and terrible typography and terrible colors and still work because it's a silly concept. And so it's kind of like there are the people who are going for that audience, and they're trying to just make a game to be shocking, and then there are
Hmm.
the people who are trying to make a game to learn the game, and then there are the people who are really trying to make something serious. And I guess this conversation kind of goes further into um, what my entire book, Discover Game Design, is about, and that is finishing the actual game.
That is, yeah, that is the number one most important thing that you can learn. You know, it's
Right.
probably applicable to anything in life, to be honest. But yeah, as far as your games go, I think that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people make is not learning how to finish them.
Not learning how to finish and not learning how to rinse and repeat and finish and
Yeah,
finish and finish, because we get very caught up in the finer details of things, and there's no doubt that making this kind of artwork is time consuming. Like, I don't know how
sure.
much time you spend on this. That's actually one of my questions. I totally had questions for you, and I'm just going completely off script.
Who needs them? Throw
Who,
them out the
who
window.
needs the questions?
Screw that.
But
Yeah.
it's something that I am curious to know is, what is a typical day like for you doing art and animation for games? How much time does it take? And do you think that if you didn't have other people who were doing other things as part of a team, that
Yeah.
it would take you even longer? Like, if you guys didn't have, if you were doing this all solo, which it looks like you're kind of interested in messing around with or learning some logic with the construct stuff.
Mhm.
Um, what would your typical day like be for if you were doing it solo, and what you are like now? Does that make sense?
It does. I'll start by saying that it's a bit of a tricky question, only because it's very circumstantial.
True.
It really depends on what I'm animating, and sometimes I'm not animating. Sometimes I'm actually doing marketing work or other things, because when you're part of a small team, everyone has to wear many hats. So my priority is generally the pixel art. So we do have a pipeline of kind of, who does what in the team first, and then it gets sent to me, the pixel artist, and then that gets sent to the programmer, etc. But yeah, so working in a small team, you do wear many hats. So I'm not always doing pixel art, but as far as the pixel art goes, the reason I would say it's easier in a team is that you don't have to stay self-motivated all the time. And that's a big thing. I think it's hard for a lot of people to stay self-motivated and to maintain the discipline it takes to bring a project from an idea, something that sounds like it'd be fun to make, to actually trudging through what is oftentimes a grueling process of troubleshooting and trial and error before you get a finished game. And a lot of people tend to stop somewhere in the middle there because they don't have someone kind of supporting them and encouraging them to push through it even when it gets really, really hard. There are definitely people who can do it. I know people who've made games entirely on their own, done all the music, the code, the art, and they're amazing, but maybe those aren't the majority. So I would say that working in a team has been very helpful. We have 2 developers, two coders in Spaceboy Games, Zach Bell and Alejandro Hidi, and they're both amazing at what they do. They generally work in Game Maker, at least for our games.
Right.
And then we have Felipe Martins, who does the concept art, and he's absolutely incredible. Has way more experience than really all of us in games, so he's able to bring art direction and even some business savvy to the group. But as far as the pipeline goes, having a concept artist is going to save me a lot of time, because that's not necessarily my area of expertise, even though I like doing, I like coming up with concepts and ideas, and I can sketch a bit, but he's way better than I am, leagues better, more creative too. So he'll do something amazing, a drawing for an enemy, let's say, send that to me, and then it makes my job easier because I just recreate that enemy in pixel art, and then I can just spend my time animating it, making sure that it comes to life in the way that I envision. So yeah, so we have kind of a conveyor belt system going here where things just kind of get sent from person to person, and that way the game gets done more quickly and we can support each other.
So then I guess the question leads into, if you don't mind me asking, how did all of this come together as a team? Because I primarily do a lot of the stuff solo. And so I'm curious as well. What were the defining moments? Like, how did you guys get together as a team? Because I think that even for, someone who's just getting interested in game design, it's very tough to find people to collaborate if you're not looking in the right place. And I've definitely sent out a few tweets where I'm like, I'm looking for a pixel artist who just wants to collaborate, and I'll get people who send me, crazy proposals back who want me to, pay them all this money. And I said, no, I just want to collaborate. I just want to make something.
I hear you. It can be tricky. I have actually had a lot of people asking me the same thing, whether I know any pixel artists who are willing to collaborate or any coders, because usually I'm pretty busy. So it's kind of, there's an easy side to it and a difficult side. I think the difficult side is that a lot of people are either kind of hiding online, they're lurkers, so to speak. So they follow a lot of people on Twitter that they'd like to work with, let's say Twitter, it could be anywhere, forums or whatnot, but they don't really communicate with them. So a lot of them fall into the category of, I guess I'll just say people who wish that they were doing something that they're not. And there's a reason that they're not. It's because they're not being proactive about it. They're not saying, hey, I really like what you're doing. I'd love to work with you at some time. If you ever need code or if you need music or whatnot, then hit me up. And you don't have to do it in an aggressive way, because I've seen people do that too, where they're just spamming them with DMs or links to their portfolio, and that can get a bit abrasive and be a bit of a turnoff. But I think if you're nice about it, just realize that that's a person who likes making games too, just like you, and just communicate with them, as if you were working in a communal space. Go over and be like, hey, I really like what you're doing here. How did you do this? How long did it take you to do this? And just ask any basic questions that you would ask a friend. And I think that that's a good way of kind of networking and establishing a group of developers, like-minded developers, that will maybe keep you in mind in the future if they do need someone with your abilities.
I think that's great, man. Actually,
yeah,
I think that's a lot of people skip over that, and the time that they would spend just like spamming you could be time that they could be trying to become your friend or just working on their own stuff. And I feel like one of the things I've been trying to do is retweet. I don't know if have you ever heard of Buffer?
I don't think so. It doesn't sound familiar.
Buffer is there's a free plan, and it lets you schedule your tweets and your Facebook posts. And for someone like me who has tweets and Facebook posts, it lets you do both. So if I find cool pixel art, I hit Buffer retweet, and then it retweets at a certain time of day on on both platforms. And I'm trying to promote people to draw or to post pixel arts, to post concept art, and I feel like when people do that, I will instead of wasting time, I guess
not doing
a lot of people
it.
Yeah, exactly, wasting time not doing it. Then I feel like I would just notice you more, you know what I mean? Like if your pixel art shows up, I will probably retweet it faster than it will take me to respond to your message, unless I'm like actively looking for somebody like that.
Right.
That's kind of what I was trying to say there. Like I'm sure I've probably even retweeted your stuff, and that's kind of, I think Twitter was the main way that you guys all got together, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I read that somewhere.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
A long time ago.
It's precisely because we were doing that. We were retweeting or tweeting rather a lot of our own GIFs, things that we were making. So I would be posting a lot of the pixel art I was working on, and Zach at the time was posting a lot of the prototypes he was making, and we both appreciated each other's work. And it literally just started with us saying, hey, dude, this is super cool. Would love to work with you sometime. Not in an aggressive way. Again, just letting him know, letting each other know that we appreciate each other's work, and then we'd love to work together. And from there, that's how Spaceboy Games was formed, and that's how we started working together, and that's how we met all the other members of the team.
I think that's huge. I think that's a really huge point for a lot of my audience, for people who are beginners, or they're just testing the waters to see if game design is their thing, and that's definitely something I wish I had known years ago, because I have been doing all of this stuff for a very, very long time. Basically, my entire life. I have been doing animation, game design, and web programming. I've just been doing all of this for a very long time, and the internet has evolved so much that now with Twitter, you have retweeting available to you, and just being able to create a team like that is something I totally wish I knew when I started out. I wish it existed when I started doing this.
Well, right, there's that too. There's that side of it too.
Yeah, really, I really wish that.
No, I mean, I hear you, because I wish I'd started way earlier too. And who knows where either of us would be if we had started even earlier. But thinking of it that way is not going to really help you get anywhere. You've got to start the moment you figure that out. So
there was like a saying once, I heard a quote that it's like, your network is your net worth, where I guess the whole point of the quote is the people that will directly correlate to your success.
It sounds harsh. I think it sounds like a harsh way to have to live, but it is true, because even if you're the most talented artist or coder in the world, if nobody knows that, then you're not going to ever get your stuff out there. No one's going to ever buy or play your game. No one's gonna ever want to work with you. So you've got to network, and you've got to put yourself out and not be too shy about it, because at the end of the day, everybody is probably a lot more like you than you think.
That's it for the interview preview. I hope you enjoyed listening. The full interview will be released alongside Discover Game Design. If you haven't already checked it out, go to discovergamedesign.com to read the free ebook and access the Game Loop formula. See you next time.